Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into the life of Bettie Page today.
Bettie Page.
Yeah, Bettie Page. I feel like a lot of us just know her as this, pinup icon.
Right.
But this biography we're looking at paints, a way more
Yeah.
complicated picture.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really fascinating story. And, you see the pictures, and it's very easy to just sort of see her as,
Right.
just a pinup model. But there's a lot more to it.
Yeah, how did she even become this
Yeah.
huge phenomenon?
Well, she, if we go all the way back to the beginning, she was actually born in Nashville, Tennessee
Oh, wow.
in 1923,
Okay.
right in the middle of a movie screening.
Oh, is that right?
It's kind of funny when you think about how her life turned out.
I know.
Being born during a movie.
Kind of poetic.
Yeah, yeah. But, her early life was really far from Hollywood. Her family was impoverished, and they moved around a lot because of her father's unstable employment during the Depression.
Yeah.
You can only imagine what that kind of instability does to a kid.
That's got to be really tough, especially during that time.
Right, yeah.
And then reading about the abuse she endured, from her father.
Yeah.
Starting at age 10.
It's so heartbreaking. And I think that's a really critical point to sort of focus on for a minute, because it's very likely that early trauma and instability really impacted her choices later in life.
Now, you got to wonder if she ever felt really safe.
Exactly. Yeah. And it seems like she was always searching for some kind of stability, but kept finding herself in more turmoil. Yeah.
Exactly. And then that kind of led her to that first marriage when she was only 17.
Yeah, 17. She eloped with Billy Neal.
Okay.
It was like a whirlwind romance. Took her off to California.
But
even California couldn't really provide the escape she was looking for. The marriage was really tumultuous, and she ended up moving back and forth between California, New York, back to Nashville, all before she was 25.
It's like she was running from something but couldn't outrun it.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about how, her early experiences with her father, who was abusive and unstable, might have, affected who she was attracted to later on in life.
Yeah.
Maybe she was trying to fix those patterns.
Subconsciously, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Looking for a different outcome.
Yeah.
But this theme of seeking love and stability, but then running into disappointment and trauma, that keeps coming up in her life over and over again.
Yeah, it's like a cycle.
Yeah,
it is. But in the middle of all of this, she finds herself drawn to the world of modeling in New York.
Yes,
and she's even doing it for free at first to just build that portfolio.
And that's where we start to see, the Bettie Page, as we know it, taking shape,
so to speak.
She had a photographer, Jerry Tibbs, suggested she try brushing her bangs down.
Oh, wow.
And that was the beginning of that, iconic look.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, I know.
Just someone say, hey, try this with your hair, and it just, launches this whole thing.
Right. Yeah.
It's incredible.
She started working with photographers like Ouija, became really popular in the camera club scene.
That's so cool.
Yeah, she just had this natural charisma that really captivated people.
Totally.
Even among all these other beautiful models, she stood out.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
And then that fame leads her to Irving Klaw.
Yes.
Who played this really crucial and kind of controversial role in her career. They kind of moved from the traditional cheesecake photography to something.
Yeah, they started doing what was called bondage photography at the time.
A more risque.
And it's important to remember that this is the 1950s. We're talking about a very socially conservative time.
Yeah.
Anything that was seen as obscene was scrutinized, legal challenges.
Totally. And then Klaw, he ends up in that spotlight.
Yeah.
During the Kefauver hearings.
The Kefauver hearings, yeah.
It's wild to think that a Senate subcommittee is looking into organized crime and somehow gets tangled up with pinup photography.
I know. It's kind of a crazy story. And
it is.
It wasn't really just about him. It was this bigger anxiety about changing sexual attitudes and what was seen as obscene.
Totally.
And it really did have a chilling effect on artistic expression, especially for people like him and Betty who are pushing those boundaries.
Yeah. I mean, but some argue that he was exploiting her.
Right.
So how do you reconcile that with the fact that she was looking for artistic recognition?
It's a really good question. And I think the line between artistic expression and exploitation can be really blurry.
Especially with something like sexuality.
Especially with, especially with something like that.
Really.
And it's very possible she felt both,
right.
Empowered by her work and also vulnerable to being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that, even in that world of art and glamour, those power dynamics can be really complicated.
Yeah, they can be.
And unequal.
Absolutely. And so even though her fame as this pinup model is going up,
right,
the book talks about how she was also wanting more.
She wanted something more.
She had these other aspirations beyond just the pinup world.
Yeah, she studied acting.
Really?
At places like the Herbert Burkhoff studio.
Wow.
She was in TV commercials. She even got parts in off-Broadway plays.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And she actually had a chance to audition for Broadway, but
oh, wow.
She backed out.
Interesting.
So it shows you that she was
ambitious. She was intelligent. She wanted a different kind of success.
Totally. And at the same time, her personal life is...
still a roller coaster.
Yes, this roller coaster.
Yeah, she remarries Billy Neal, but as we might guess, they weren't compatible.
Yeah.
She also falls in love with and marries this guy, Carl Reese.
Okay.
But he's already married.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
complicated.
It's like this constant search for that stable, loving connection, but always running into roadblocks.
Yeah.
Heartbreak. Yeah.
And then things take a turn as Betty starts to show signs of mental illness.
It's really sad, and it's such an important part of her story.
Yeah, it is.
It shows that even behind all that glamour, people can be struggling with really personal and often invisible battles.
Absolutely.
And back then, I mean, you think about it, mental health wasn't as well understood as it is today.
Right.
And the resources, they were limited. Yeah, definitely.
Especially for someone who's in the public eye.
Totally.
Yeah.
And the biography goes into some pretty scary incidents that happened during this time. Like there's this one where she holds Harry Lear, who she was married to later at knife point, and forces him and his kids to pray in front of a picture of Jesus.
I can only imagine how scary that must have been.
Oh, it's got to be terrifying.
For him and his kids, yeah.
Yeah.
And it really shows you just how powerful and how impactful mental illness can be. Yeah. Not just on the person who's sick, but on the people around them as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Bettie Page, I mean...
she's more than just a pinup. Yeah. Way more than just a pinup. She's this complex person with all this ambition, trauma, resilience, and in the end, tragedy.
Yeah, and as we get further into her life and the next part of our deep dive, we're going to see how all those pieces come together.
Yeah, to create this really captivating and kind of heartbreaking story.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's kind of wild how she just vanishes from public life right when she's super famous.
Yeah, like, poof.
It's almost like she just walked off the stage and was never seen again.
I know. People probably thought something terrible had happened to her.
Right.
But it's not that simple, is it?
No, not at all. It actually happened right around the time when, like, society's views on sex were changing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so, like, the 1960s come around, things are getting more free, and those pinup photos that used to be like, whoa.
Right.
Now they're almost tame compared to, what's starting to come out.
Yeah, totally.
So while everyone else is having this sexual revolution...
Betty's off doing her own thing.
Yeah, she's going through this, like, intense religious phase.
Really?
Yeah, she's studying the Bible, going to Bible college.
Wow.
It was a big deal for her. Like, she really found comfort in her faith.
I mean, I guess after everything she'd been through, it makes sense.
Yeah, she even thought about becoming a missionary. But, it was the 60s, but still, they wouldn't let her because she was divorced.
Oh, man, it's like she couldn't escape those judgments.
No, not really. And it probably made her feel even more isolated, which is maybe why she went back to Nashville to be with her family.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like going back to something familiar.
Yeah, exactly.
But even that wasn't, like, totally peaceful.
Oh.
Yeah, the book says she actually confronted her father about the abuse.
Wow, that must have been hard.
I can't even imagine after all those years.
No.
But he denied it, like, completely.
Even when he was dying.
Even then. It's heartbreaking,
Yeah, I do.
Like, sometimes you try to get closure, but you just never get the answers.
It's true.
It's really tough.
And then her relationships, like, It's the same pattern again.
Yeah, unfortunately.
He even remarries Billy Neal for a bit.
They get back together, it's a mess, they split up again.
It's like she couldn't break free from that.
It's sad. It is, but maybe she was drawn to it, like trying to fix something from her past.
Yeah, maybe.
It happens a lot with people who've been through trauma.
Right.
They try to rewrite the story, but it doesn't always work out that way.
No, it doesn't.
So she ends up in Florida.
Okay.
And meets Harry Lear, marries him. That's husband number 3.
Okay.
And for a while, it seems like things are okay.
Really?
Yeah, they even go on vacations with his kids.
Oh, that's nice.
But her mental health, it's still a problem.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, and it gets worse, like a lot worse. Her
Right.
paranoia, the delusions, it's intense.
Yeah, the book talks about that one time with Harry and his kids.
Oh,
right?
yeah, the knife incident.
It's just, it shows you how serious this was.
Absolutely. It was clear she needed help.
Yeah.
And that's why Harry left. He knew she needed professional help.
That makes sense.
It's a really sad turning point in her life.
It is.
And from there, things just spiral. She gets in trouble with the law, ends up in mental hospitals, and then, well, there's the stabbing.
Right. It's hard to hear about.
It's really tragic, especially when you think about how famous and vibrant she used to be.
I know.
But it's so important to remember that her actions, they were because of her illness.
That's true.
Paranoid schizophrenia, it's powerful. It can warp your reality,
Yeah.
make you do things you wouldn't normally do.
It's a reminder that mental illness is real.
Yeah.
It's serious,
Yeah.
and it needs to be treated with compassion,
Exactly.
not judgment.
Absolutely.
So Betty's life is falling apart, and it seems like the world has forgotten about her.
Yeah, the pinup queen is gone.
But, as we'll find out in the next part, fate had other plans for Bettie Page.
Oh.
While she's struggling, a whole new generation is discovering her.
Really?
Yeah, they're finding her pictures, and they're loving it.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, they see her as this icon of, glamour and rebellion.
So she becomes a legend all over again.
Exactly.
Wow, that's something.
It really is. It's amazing how she, comes back into the spotlight years later,
It's incredible. But
Yeah.
it wasn't all sunshine and roses.
Oh, right. What happened?
Well, she ended up in all these legal battles.
Really?
Yeah, and there were accusations of exploitation again.
Oh, wow. So it's like history repeating itself.
It really is, yeah. People are celebrating her image,
Right.
but she's fighting to actually control it.
Yeah, to,
Eat it.
make money off of it.
Exactly, and what's crazy is that through all of this,
Yeah.
she's still living this really modest life.
Really?
Yeah, apparently she didn't care about being rich or anything.
Mm.
She was just happy with what she had.
And that's where Mark Swanson comes in, right?
Mark Swanson, yeah, he was her agent and lawyer.
Right. And the book talks about how he handled her business
Yeah.
during these later years, and there's, some shady stuff.
There are, accusations of conflicts of interest, even fraud.
He wasn't looking out for her best interests.
It definitely raises some red flags, yeah.
Was she even aware of how famous she still was
That's a good question.
and how much money her pictures were making?
We don't really know for sure, and the biography doesn't give us a clear answer.
It's sad,
It is, yeah. It's like a cautionary tale about fame and exploitation.
Totally. Especially for someone who's maybe not in the best place mentally.
Exactly.
Or doesn't know their rights.
Right, and despite all this,
Yeah.
her fan base just kept growing.
People love her.
They do, yeah.
It's the nostalgia, the glamour, the rebellion.
And I think people really connected with her spirit.
Totally. So it's decades after she's first famous.
Mm-hmm.
She's a star all over again.
A cultural icon.
Yeah.
Artists, designers, even burlesque dancers, everyone's inspired by her.
You see her everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah.
It's wild.
What's interesting is how her image kind of took on a new meaning,
Right.
It's not just about pinups anymore.
Right.
It's about female empowerment, about owning your sexuality.
Yeah, she broke those barriers.
He did, yeah.
Even back then.
In a time when things were much more conservative.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I think what's most fascinating is all the unanswered questions.
The mysteries.
Yeah.
Did she ever pose for really explicit photos?
I know. There are all these rumors.
Rumors, stories, but nothing concrete.
So we'll probably never know for sure.
Probably not.
And then there's the question of whether she knew how famous she still was.
Yeah, some people say she had no idea.
It's crazy to think about, right?
It is. Imagine having this huge impact on culture, but not even knowing it.
And what about how she felt about her past?
That's the big one.
Did she ever come to terms with all of it?
The trauma, the illness, being taken advantage of.
I mean, the book gives us some hints.
Some glimpses into her thoughts, but we don't really know for sure.
It's almost like she kept those secrets to herself.
Yeah, and maybe that's part of what makes her so captivating.
Yeah. So Bettie Page, I mean, she was beautiful and talented and strong.
Absolutely.
But she also went through a lot.
So much.
It's a story that makes you think.
It really does.
About fame, about exploitation, about mental health.
About the complexities of being human, really.
Exactly. And that's what's so great about these deep dives, you know?
Yeah.
It's not about having all the answers.
It's about exploring.
It's about asking the questions.
And coming to your own understanding.
Right. So I'm curious, what do you guys think?
Yeah, what do you think about Bettie Page?
How has your view of her changed after hearing all this?
Has it changed at all?
Yeah.
What does she represent to you now?
And do you think her images are seen differently today than they were back then?
We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, leave us a comment, send us an email, let us know.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the life of Bettie Page.
It's been a wild ride.
It has.
But a fascinating one.
Absolutely.